In this video, I'll be showing you how to set up and deploy the emergency response solution. The emergency response solution provides a set of capabilities for healthcare organizations to collect data for situational awareness of available beds, supplies, information about patients, staffing, and pending discharges. The solution also provides dashboards that allows insights to medical organizations and hospitals so that they can make informed decisions resulting in efficient deployment and usage of resources. By the end of this video, there are three main components that you will have deployed: a web app for admins, a mobile app for field staff, and a dashboard for decision makers. Please follow the link below to get the full documentation that we will be covering throughout this video and the files that are associated with this solution. Once you're done downloading and unzipping the solution, you should see a folder structure that looks like this. There should be 5 folders that include app icons, data files to pre-populate your application, a folder for the Power BI template, a folder for the PowerShell scripts that you'll use in this tutorial, and the solution file folder. Additionally, there's an Excel file that serves as a checklist as you go through the processes inside of the documentation and inside of this video. We'll periodically come back to this Excel file as we complete various steps. For example, since we've already downloaded and unzipped the deployment file, we can go ahead and mark steps 1 and 2 complete. Please note, this checklist may look different depending on your version of the solution. If there are additional steps, please refer to the configuration documentation. The next step is to upload a solution file to Power Apps. This requires an environment. If you don't already have one, don't worry. I'll step you through the steps to create a new environment. To create a new environment, navigate to admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com. Once you're there, select Environments from the left navigation and then select New. Within the New Environment pane, you can give your environment a new name, like Emergency Response. For the Type dropdown, select Production, and for the Region dropdown, select your region. Next, set the Create a Database for this environment toggle to Yes, before finally selecting Next. On the Add Database screen, you'll want to make sure that your language and currency are correctly set before finally selecting Save. Now that your environment has been created, we can import the solution from the deployment file. To do that, go to make.powerapps.com. Once you're there, you'll want to make sure that you're in the right environment. To switch your environment, select the environment picker in the top right corner and select the environment that you just created. In my case, it's Emergency Response. Once you're inside of your environment, you can go to Solutions in the left navigation. If you see an error that says no database has been found, that means your environment is still being provisioned. Come back to the page once the environment has finished being provisioned. Once your environment is done being provisioned, you can select Import to bring in the solution file. This will bring up the Select Solution Package dialog. To start, select Choose File and navigate to where your Emergency Response App Deployment folder is located. From there, select the Solution File folder and select the solution. Once you've selected the solution, select Next. This will upload the solution and provide you a confirmation screen once it's done. Select Next, and then finally select Import. Power Apps will now import your solution into your new environment. This solution is fairly complex, so it may take a while to finish, so please have patience. Feel free to pause this video and come back once it's done. Once the solution is done importing, go ahead and select Close. From there, select Publish All Customizations to publish this solution. This process might take a while, so feel free to pause the video and come back once it's done. Now that all the customizations have been successfully published, let's check out what was included inside of the solution. To do that, go to Apps in the left navigation. From there, you'll see several Canvas apps, which you'll later give to your employees, and an admin application, which will allow you to configure the data for all of your other applications. If you open up any of the Canvas apps at this time, they may appear a little bit blank, and that's because we haven't set up the data for them inside of the admin application, so this is to be expected. Before continuing, however, let's go back to our Excel checklist and see what we've completed so far. Since we've uploaded the solution file, imported the solution, and published all of the customizations, we can mark steps 3 through 5 complete. The next step is to update the data within the admin application. So let's go do that. Start by going back to your apps list and selecting the admin app. Before we start actually adding data to this admin app, let me first give you a tour so that you can navigate around successfully. On the left is your left navigation that gives you access to all of the entities that we'll provide data for. On the bottom is an area switcher. Right now, we're on the locations area, so we see all of the entities related to locations. To switch an area, simply select the area switcher and choose the area that you want to navigate to. For example, you can see dashboards, staffing entities, and administration entities. The first set of entities that we want to set are inside of administration, so go ahead and select that first. The two entities that we'll want to adjust on this screen are apps and app config. These two entities dictate the appearance of your application, so it's important to set these up so that they fit the branding of your hospital. To make it easier to set up these entities, we have data files that you can import to auto-populate these entities. To leverage these files, start by selecting Import from Excel, and then selecting Choose File. Next, navigate to the Data File folder within your deployment folder, and notice that there are several files that are prepended with 00. These files provide all of the data that you need for your base entities. Please note, it's important to not adjust the files that are prepended with 00 in order to maintain consistency across hospitals across these entities. This will make it easier to report on this information across hospitals in the future. Since we're on the apps entity, we'll want to select the corresponding app import Excel file. Select it, and then click Next. Finally, select Finish Import, before finally selecting Done. This will queue up the data to be imported inside of your apps list. In the meantime, we can go ahead and add data for app config. To do that, you'll want to repeat the same steps. Select Import from Excel, select Choose File, and then select the corresponding Excel file. In this case, it's app config import. Once again, select Next, Finish Import, and Done. To check on the status of your data import, simply select Refresh. Now that the data has been imported, it's time to make a few adjustments. The first one is to populate this Power App ID field, which you may notice is currently blank. This is used to help navigate across the various apps. To populate the Power App ID field, you'll want to first navigate back to powerapps.com, and for each of the Canvas apps, select the ... menu. Then select Details. On this screen, you'll notice that there's a section called App ID. Copy that app ID. Then take that app ID and bring it back to the corresponding application within the apps list. For example, because I copied the app ID for the Emergency Response Canvas app, I can paste it here for the Emergency Response app and click Save. You then want to repeat this process for all of the other applications. Once you're done, your apps list should look like this. The next thing you'll want to do is adjust the app icon for each of these apps. To do that, select an app and select the circle next to the app name. Then select Upload Image. To make this process easier for you, we've provided several out-of-the-box images within the Response App Deployment file. Simply go to App Icons and select the corresponding app icon. In this case, Emergency Response App. Once you're done, select Change. If you want to use your own app icons, feel free to do so. Repeat this process for each individual app. Once you're done, your apps should have the following app icons, or your own custom app icons. The last thing you'll want to do to make sure your hospital branding is in the apps is to go to App Config and adjust the primary and secondary colors. To do that, select Emergency Response App and adjust the primary and secondary color values. Please be sure to use hex values in these fields. If we go back to our Excel checklist, we can mark a few more steps as complete, including steps 6, 7, 8, and 9. The next step is to test everything that we've just completed. To do that, go back to your apps list and select the Emergency Response app. This first screen will still be blank since we haven't provided data on your hospital system, region, or facilities, so go ahead and select Next. On the next screen, however, you should see all of the apps that you provided information for inside of the admin application, including the name and the app icons. You should also be able to select any of the applications and have it open that particular feature. If it doesn't, that may mean that your app ID is improperly set. Now that we've successfully tested our app, we can come back to our Excel file and mark the Test App section complete. The next step is to load all the necessary data in order to make the app function. So let's get started. If you open up the deployment folder and check out the data files, you'll notice that there's 3 types of data files. Those that start with 00, those that live inside of the data template file for master data folder, and those that live inside of the sample data folder. The numbers represent the order by which you're supposed to load these data files into the system. This means you're supposed to load those with 00 into the system first. That's why we loaded app-config import and app import first in the previous steps. To load the other files for acuities, request roles, and supplies, we'll want to go back to the admin app, find those entities, and upload them. Let's start with acuities. Once you're back inside of the admin application, you can find acuities within the location area of the admin application. To load the data, you'll want to follow the previous steps that we followed for app and app config. Select acuities, select import from Excel, then choose file, and then select the acuities import Excel file. Once complete, select next, finish import, and then done. While you're inside of the locations area, we can go ahead and upload data for supplies. To upload data, once again, select Supplies, Import from Excel, choose File, this time select Supplies Import, and then select Next, Finish Import, and then Done. Finally, we want to upload the data for request roles. This data is located within the staffing area. So select the area picker and navigate to staffing. From there, select Request Roles, Import from Excel, choose File, and then select the Request Roles Import file. Finally, select Next, Finish Import, and then Done. As a reminder, the import process may take a while. To check on the status of any of your imports, simply select the refresh button. Once your data has been loaded, this is what it should look like for each of the entities. For acuities, it should look like this. For supplies, it should look like this. And finally, for request roles, it should look like this. Now that you've loaded all of the data that starts with 00, now it's time to load in the data for the other entities. Unlike the previous Excel sheets, which we recommend that you do not alter, the following Excel sheets should be populated with your hospital data. Before we actually dive into these Excel sheets though and start importing them into the admin app, let's take a look at how they are exposed inside of the end user applications so that you know what type of data you should be providing. For a completed version of the app, when you open it up, you'll land on this screen, which has 3 different dropdowns, one for hospital system, region, and facility. This allows a hospital employee to pick which system and facility that they are currently in. Notice that when you select a hospital system, the other dropdowns change. Likewise, when you change region, the facility also changes. Keep this in mind as you populate the data within your application. Once you select this information, the end user can then select Next and access the features for that particular facility, including staff equipment, supplies, staffing needs, COVID-19 stats, and discharge planning. We'll come back to these features in a little bit after we've imported the data for systems, regions, and facilities. Now that you know how the systems, regions, and facilities data will be used within the end user application, it's now your turn to upload your hospital data inside of the admin application. As mentioned previously, you'll want to make sure that you upload these files in the correct order, starting with 1 and ending with 6. To load your data, you'll want to leverage the data template file within the data template file for master data folder. To start, select a file that you want to add data to, in this case, load systems. And from there, you'll want to add the data for the visible columns. In this case, you'll want to provide the name of your system and the description of the system. If at any point you're confused about how to fill in this data, you can take a look at the sample Excel file, or you can read more about these fields on our doc website. As you proceed, you'll notice that some Excel sheets depend on ones that preceded it. For example, Regions has a column for System. To populate this field, make sure that you type in the name of your system exactly how you typed it in the previous Excel file. Otherwise, there may be an error when you import the Excel sheet. Once you've populated the data for systems, regions, and facilities, it's time to load this data inside of the admin application. Let's get started. The data that we'll be loading in first, systems, regions, and facilities, is located inside of the locations area, so make sure that you're there first. Once you are, go to Systems and follow the steps that we've done before. Select Import from Excel, choose File, and then select the corresponding file, in this case, Load Systems. Select Next, finish import, and click Done. Repeat for regions and facilities. Once you've imported your data, this is what it should look like. Each of the entities, system, regions, and facilities has additional columns that you can provide if you so desire. For example, Systems allows you to provide information for the effective start and end date. Regions has the similar columns. Facilities, however, has additional columns that you may want to provide. Drilling into a facility, you can see that you can provide a facility address. In the future, we will use this information to provide mapping functionality of facilities, so you may want to provide this information now. Once you're done reviewing your data, feel free to test your data within the Canvas app by going back to make.powerapps.com and selecting the Emergency Response app. This should land you on the home screen where you can play around with the drop-downs to make sure that all of your systems, regions, and facilities are correctly set. The next thing that we'll want to provide are the details that are necessary for each of these individual features. Once again, you'll want to take advantage of the data templates for the next round of entities, which include locations, departments, and staff types. To upload the data that you provide inside of these templates, you'll want to go back to the admin application. Location and departments are both stored inside of the location area of the application. To get access to the staff types data, you'll want to change from the locations area to the staffings area, where you can then see staffing types. Once you've successfully uploaded that data, you can then take advantage of the various features inside of the application. For example, if you go to Staff and Equipment, the location drop-down will show you the locations that you provided. The Staffing Needs feature takes advantage of the department data that you provided. And the COVID-19 feature also takes advantage of the location data that you provided. At this point, you've loaded all the data necessary in order to make your app function. To celebrate this milestone, let's go back to our Excel sheet and mark the next step as complete, loading the data. The next step refers to the consent dialog that you may have seen while you're testing the applications. This dialog may be annoying to end users. As a tenant admin though, you have the ability to turn this feature off. To disable the consent dialog, start by going to the PowerShell folder within the deployment package and opening up the bypass consent script.txt file. Once you have the file open, you'll want to make an adjustment to where it says app GUID here. You'll want to replace that with the app ID of each of your Canvas applications. Just like when you got the app ID for the apps list, go to make.powerapps.com, select the ... menu for your Canvas app, and then select Details before finally copying and pasting the app ID. Once you do, go back to your text editor and replace the string with your app ID. You can add multiple lines to this file, one for each of your different applications. Once you're done, you can save this file as a .ps1 file, and then open up PowerShell. From PowerShell, navigate to your new script and execute it. You'll get a login prompt after you run this script. If you're a tenant admin, after providing your credentials, you'll be able to run the script. After running the script, you can mark step number 12 as complete. The next few steps are optional if you have an App Insights key. If you do, follow the link below to review the docs on how to set up your Canvas apps with App Insights. This will provide you with valuable telemetry to show you how folks are using your application. For the purposes of this deployment video, however, we will skip these few steps. Instead, we'll jump all the way down to sharing the Canvas apps. To share the Canvas apps with your users, go back to the apps list and select the ... menu for one of your applications, and then select Share. After doing so, provide the name of the security group that you would like to share the app with. For example, medical staff. Once you do, you'll want to make sure that these users have the right data permissions. To ensure that they do, select the drop-down and make sure that these roles are selected: Emergency Response User and Common Data Service User. Once you're done selecting these two roles, click Share. You'll then want to repeat this process for each of the other Canvas applications. While you're at it, you can also share the admin app by selecting the ... menu, selecting Share, and then typing in the name of the person you want to share the admin app with. For example, I may want to share the app with Aya. Then select the person that you're going to share with and give them the Emergency Response Admin role before finally selecting Share. Now that you've successfully shared your Canvas apps and admin app, you can mark steps 16, 17, and 19 as complete. Step 18 is an optional step if you would like to complete it. If you would like to set the Emergency Response app as the hero app within the Power Apps mobile app, you can follow the steps inside of the configuration guide. Similar to bypassing the consent dialog, this requires a tenant admin to run a PowerShell script. At this point, you have now successfully configured and deployed the application. But there's still more that you can do. Once users start using your app, you'll start collecting a lot more data. To view the data, you can go back to the admin application, go to the area picker, and select Dashboards. From the dashboard area, you'll be able to get reports on bed management, equipment and supplies, staff management, COVID patients, and discharges. For more details about these dashboards, review the user and configuration guides. If you want to take it a step further, you can also get insights using Power BI dashboards. This requires a Power BI Premium Capacity or Power BI Pro license assigned to the users accessing the reports. This also requires a workspace in Power BI for where you can publish the report. To get started, navigate to the location where you extracted the deployment package. Within the deployment folder, you'll find the Power BI template folder. Expand it and open up the Emergency Response app.pbit. When this file opens in Power BI Desktop, you'll see a refresh dialog box stating that the data refresh failed. This is because you haven't yet specified the connection details to your Common Data Service environment. To do so, select Transform Data to specify connection to your Common Data Service environment. In the query editor, update the CDS base URL parameter with the URL of your Common Data Service environment. To get the value, you'll want to go to your admin application and copy everything right before /main. In the query editor, right-click CDS base URL, select Advanced Editor, and then specify the appropriate value. Once you're done, save your changes and select Apply. Once you do, you'll be prompted to enter credentials to connect to your Common Data Service environment. Select Organizational Account, Sign In, and then provide your credentials. Once you're done, select Connect to establish a connection. Once the connection has been made, you'll be prompted to save the file as a PBIX file along with your Common Data Service environment information. At this point, provide a name and save it to your computer. Back in the Power BI report, on the Home tab, select Close and Apply. Finally, select Refresh to see all of the data from your Common Data Service populate the report. Once you're happy, you can select Publish to publish your data to the Power BI workspace. In the Publish to Power BI page, select the workspace where you want to publish this report to. Once it's done uploading, the report will be available in your workspace. You can now configure the data refresh for the dataset. To do so, navigate to Power BI Online, find your report, find the data for your report, and then select the Schedule Refresh icon. On the settings page for your dataset, expand Data Source Credentials and select Edit Credentials to ensure the credentials are correct. Once you're sure that they're correct, you can expand Schedule Refresh and specify the required details for how often you want to refresh the data. Finally, you can create an app for your report. To do so, select the workspace name in the left pane and then select Create App in the top right corner. On the App Publishing page, you have a few things that you'll want to set up. On the Setup tab, specify the name and description of your app. On the Navigation tab, you can specify the location of the dashboard where you will publish it. And then on the Permissions tab, you can specify users or groups who will be able to view this app. Once you've configured all of the information, you can select Publish App. This will publish the app, and everyone that you shared the app with will have access to it. Now that you've created the Power BI report, you've completed all the steps necessary to deploy this solution. You now have an end-user application for medical staff to report on information. You have an admin app to manage all of the data. And you have a Power BI report to view and understand the data that is coming from the field. We'd love to understand how you're using this application and where you would like improvements. If you have feedback, please message us by going to the link below. We can't wait to hear from you.